So, dear student, we continue with the topic. Just few minutes back, we were discussing about the limitations of SRE. Number one limitation was that death of the seedling or mortality of the seedling. Because seedlings are just 12 days old, very young, and one seedling in one place. So they are exposed to climatic, they are exposed to the harsh climate. Because sometimes it is suppose planted in July. So July, you have very high temperature, and that high temperature can affect your young seedling. And further, if rainfall is there, so the height of the seedling may be just 4 or 5 centimeters. So that height, that seedling can die in the standing water because it does not have sufficiently developed this parenchyma cells and well-defined root system or shoot system. So seedling mortality is high, number one. Number two is that in transplanting and in handling of young seedlings, just you can uproot one seedling and you need to separate seedlings when you transplant. So it consumes more labor. And third is that since the soils are just kept saturated, there is no standing water. So therefore you will have competition from the weed. So weed competition or weed growth is more in SRE compared to conventional system. Other is that you will have iron deficiency here, or rather I can say multiple micronutrient deficiency. Very shortly, next week, I will discuss about the chemical, biological, and physical changes in rice soils. So there you will realize the value of the water, value of flooding or submergence. Flooding and submergence in rice is always advantageous. It had been advantageous and it will remain advantageous. It is not that easy unless we change the rice plant. We need water for rice. So multiple micronutrient deficiency appear in SRI or whenever we grow rice with less water. And also nematode infestation was more in SRI grown rice. So therefore, there are certain limitations. Therefore, it could not spread to the many parts of India. I never heard SRI in Kerala. Kerala, because in Kerala, you have a lot of rainfall is there. So they cannot maintain the principle of SRA, which is just maintaining the saturated water during the vegetative phase. So it is not possible. So many times if rain happens to be 10 centimeter and your rice plant is in elongation stage or tilling stage, then at that time, no farmer from India would drain out the water from the rice field because water is the most precious input for rice farmer. But as far as SRA principle is concerned, it says that you can keep just saturated soils. You cannot keep standing water. But if your field is flooded, you have to remove the water. But very next day, the crop will require water. So what I mean to say is that no farmer in India or world would do the drainage of water from rice field if it is from rainfall, because rice can tolerate large quantities of water and it is more happy if it receives water. So now your questions. You are free to ask questions. It has nothing to do with your marks, with your exam. So don't worry, don't fear. You can have free discussion. Any question in your mind?
Sir, what is the reason behind the becoming popular during 2004 and beyond 2010? Why that time became popular and now it's getting less popular?
See, it is really very pertinent question that why people were talking during initial years. It came in 2003 and the popularity and it was a hot topic till 2010 or 11. So I can say for a decade, for 10 years, it was a much talked about topic. So what happens whenever some new terminology comes, whenever some new concept comes, all the people start running after it, whether good or bad. And particularly the scientific community is not very rational. Many times we people are not rational. We have some hidden interest, and because of which sometimes we also promote the wrong technologies. So that happened with the SRI also. And these administrators or politicians, they catch the things. They just catch the things. These days, my friends, if you know about ZBNF, as a student of agriculture, I think most of you are agricultural graduate. You did your BSc agriculture. Most of you are maybe from village background. Can you think that soil will give you production continuously without adding any organic material or without adding any nutrient into the soil? Just give me answer.
Yes, sir. That was my question, sir. How compost will provide sufficient amount of nitrogen
No,
or chemical, other chemical
in that
fertilizers?
case, you need to apply compost in large amount. You need to apply
Yes.
compost in large amount as per requirement of the crop. Now you are, I got your point. Now you are even skeptical about compost. If only 50% requirement of nutrients is supplied by compost, how come it will meet out the remaining requirement of the nutrient? Point is valid. So it was like this, it was incomplete. Then scientists like us, we thought that it will not work. So we made a compromise. Therefore, when we started first experiment on SRE in 2004, we decided to implement INM. So we have taken INM, half nutrients were supplied through organic sources and half through fertilizers. So therefore, it is not that SRE was adopted as such. A lot of modifications were made. People use herbicides. So major reason behind success was that people used INM, not just compost. So INM was used in SRE. So, you know, when you get something new, then people start talking, even they do not have any knowledge. What knowledge is available with our Prime Minister about ZBNF? Has he done any experiment? Not at all. He did not do. He believed the people who are giving him feedback. But what will be the end of such technology? It will not work. It will not work. See, without adding anything in soil, how can you produce yields continuously? So what happens? Now today everybody is talking about ZBNF. Your Niti Aayog is talking about, I'm not against ZBNF or I am not for ZBNF. Okay, I'm just a neutral person here. So Niti Aayog, your largest planning body of the country, it is recommending, they are forcing farmers to start ZBNF without knowing the scientific consequences. So same story happened with SRI. It was promoted by politicians rather than the scientists. And it was promoted by NGOs who expected a lot of funds. So now there are scientists even today, they can say anything yes for getting a project, for getting the funds. So there are some scientists from Himachal Pradesh behind the ZBNF. I'm really shocked to, I never spoken on ZBNF from my mouth. And today also, I little bit, I have fear in my mind, but someday we need to speak the truth. And truth is that ZBNF cannot serve any purpose. It is because of policies of the people. I cannot say much beyond this. So that is all. Now your questions. You got my point. I think I should not explain much on this because now you can read between the lines or read between the statements. So now we come to
Yes,
another,
sir.
okay. Now we come to another, now this lecture will end at 6:15, I think, 6:15. So in the next 25 minutes, I need to finish this aerobic rice. So aerobic rice is considered as a tool, as a method to save water. Why we talk of aerobic rice? So it is not new, this aerobic rice. Many times it is confused with the direct seeded rice. So all kind of direct seeded rice are aerobic. One statement is, or any rice, even if you transplanted the rice and you maintain the aerobic conditions in transplanted rice, it will become aerobic. Your upland rice, whenever you transplant upland rice, transplanting is not done. In upland rice, you go for direct seeding. Under those conditions, water does not stay in the field. So that is also aerobic rice. And that is direct seeded rice. Okay. you have transplanted and you maintain very saturated conditions or condition just close to the field capacity, and you allow oxygen into the soil, then that rice, conventional rice, also becomes your aerobic rice. So this is one lot of confusion is there in the mind of the students and people about aerobic rice. So first meaning, I think you understood, that is the first meaning of aerobic rice. You can plant, you can do planting, you can do sowing, you can do wet seeding, direct seeding, any kind of seeding. But if under for a particular length of the growing period, if aerobic conditions are maintained, aerobic conditions means entry of oxygen into the soil or sufficient oxygen is there in the soil, that is your aerobic rice. So in the broader sense, aerobic rice means just I told you the meaning of aerobic rice. But in the modern sense, in the latest sense, aerobic rice was proposed, the name was proposed by Bowman in 2003, International Rice Research Institute. So now what aerobic rice I am talking about now, it is direct seeded rice, it is unpuddled rice, the land preparation is done. Land preparation is done like you do for wheat production or maize production, means you apply water, pre-sowing irrigation, then plow the land, prepare the field, and do the sowing by plow or by seed drill machine. And you select the best variety, select the high yielding variety, use your herbicide, use the required quantity of fertilizers and manure, and then get the yields. And for water management in aerobic rice, you just keep the saturated soil conditions up to panicle initiation. And after that, keep a shallow submergence. So that is aerobic rice in present sense. Hope you understood this point. So here is the definition of aerobic rice. And sometimes people call it direct seeded rice also. So high yielding rice grown in non-puddled aerobic soils under irrigation and high external inputs. High external inputs. To make aerobic rice successful, new varieties and management practices must be developed. Irrigation is applied when the soil becomes dry and the quantity of applied water is sufficient to bring the soil to the field capacity. Only you apply water to maintain the field capacity, and beyond which you should not use water during vegetative growth. New varieties must be developed for aerobic conditions. So aerobic rice should be responsive to high inputs, water, nutrients to reach high yields under non-flooded conditions. The other meaning is that under irrigated conditions of low land, you normally use high yielding variety. If you grow rice under those conditions by direct method, by direct seeding, then it becomes your aerobic rice. In general sense, in upland also, you are doing direct seeding, but you are using low yielding varieties. You are not following proper weed management practices. So you are not maintaining water at field capacity. So that is kind of rain-fed rice. Of course, that is also direct seeded rice, but that is rain-fed rice. So aerobic rice, you can remember, this is. So you can see this direct seeding can be done in dry beds. Direct seeding can be done in wet beds, and direct seeding in standing water. So, but that is not aerobic rice. That is not aerobic rice. Aerobic rice, the meaning and sense is with respect to irrigated land, plowing is done, and seeding is done in well-prepared land, and then you follow the best variety. You apply irrigation, assured irrigation, and harvest more than 5 tons per hectare. That is your aerobic rice. Now, if you talk about, just forget for the time being, aerobic rice, just see direct seeded rice, because aerobic rice came in picture to save the water. Because many people think that in irrigated agriculture or irrigated rice production, there is a lot of consumption of irrigation water. So let us reduce that quantity of water. But and that is also part of direct seeded rice. Aerobic rice is a kind of direct seeded rice for irrigated agriculture. So if we just compare the direct seeded rice and transplanted rice, all kind of direct seeded rice, So in Asia, total rice area is 131.6 million hectare. I've already given you data. And DSR is 28.3 million hectare. And transplanted is 103.3 million hectare. So overall, you can see there is about 21% of the total rice area in Asia is direct seeded rice. So it includes all kind of direct seeded rices. In India, for example, it is 42.5 or 43 million hectare, out of which 12.5 million hectare is direct seeded and 30 million hectare is transplanted. So you can see about 30% or 28% to 30% of total rice area in India is direct seeded. However, since some other countries like Malaysia, 71% is DSR. In Philippines, 42%, in Vietnam, 39%, and in USA and Australia, it is 100% direct seeded. Now, why there is direct seeding over transplanted rice? So there are certain drivers, certain reasons. So first thing is that sometimes back, these broad spectrum herbicides were not available, but now herbicides are available. Because major problem in direct seeded rice, in SRI, in aerobic rice, there is related to three subjects. First is that you will have weed problem. Weed growth is too high if you go for direct seeding. Number one. Number two, multiple micronutrient deficiency, particularly iron deficiency. And number three, nematode problem. So there are three problems associated with direct seeded rice. That is weed growth, excess weed growth, iron deficiency, and your nematode infestation. A lot of nematodes come in direct seeded rice. But now problems like weed problem can be solved. Now we have variety of herbicides, and also labor scarcity is there. Another driver is labor scarcity. And also energy issues are also coming into picture. For transplanting, you need to go for land preparation and so on. High wages of labor and water scarcity is there. So these are the drivers. Why we should go for direct seeding? Because of water shortage and because of labor shortage, because of energy shortage. And on the other hand, we also have certain facilities like broad spectrum herbicides are available. Now, and why we should switch over from transplanted rice? So transplanted rice has some issues like high water requirement, high labor requirement. You are aware of this, adverse effect on soil health. So many people say that soil structure is broken. And then if you go for sowing of the next crop, the germination and establishment of the next crop is adversely affected by transplanting or by puddling. And high energy requirement in transplanted rice and environmental hazards, more emission of methane in transplanted rice. So because of this also, people are considering to switch over to direct seeded aerobic rice. In Punjab, area under aerobic rice is increasing slowly. Now, further points in support of aerobic rice or direct seeded rice. You need a lot of water to produce rice by conventional method. About 3,000 liters, you can say. 3,000 liters of water is required to produce 1 kg rough rice. So that is very expensive. If you take price of water as 1 rupee a liter, then 5,000 liter means 5,000 rupees. Just cost of the 1 kg, cost of the water to produce 1 kg rice. So from that angle, it is very expensive. And further, we export the rice. If we are exporting the rice, that means we are also exporting the water to other countries. So we should include the real cost of water needed by rice while we export the rough rice. It is view of some people. And it requires about 1,200 to 1,500 millimeter of water, which is approximately double of DSR. If you are growing by DSR, it needs less water, around 800 millimeter. And also the groundwater table is depleting in Punjab and Haryana. Every year, 60 centimeter water table is going down in Punjab. 60 centimeter, half meter water table is going down in Punjab. So these are also aspects which are compelling the farmer to think otherwise. So there are certain adverse effects of transplanted rice on succeeding crop. Heavy puddling is carried out in TPR. Soil physical property deteriorate. Soil compaction happens. Temporary waterlogging condition in succeeding crop. You may not get sufficient time for preparation, land preparation and planting or sowing of next crop because of waterlogging initially. Difficult to manage such. So these are some cosmetic points I think a student need to remember. They're not very genuine points, but of course, as a student, you can write in your exam, what are the adverse effect of TPR? These are really cosmetic points. So again, this methane emission is there from the puddled rice or transplanted rice, or you can say flooded rice. Under flooding conditions, you get transplanting because in this conventional rice, you need to keep your land flooded. So methane emission is there. And many people suggest that how much methane is removed from the flooded rice. So it is, somebody says it is 1 to 60 milligram methane per hour per meter square. This is the way they measure the methane. And methane is more dangerous than carbon dioxide. It traps heat 21 times more than carbon dioxide. So therefore, this transplanted puddled rice is cursed for emission of the methane. So many people criticize it, this puddled rice. So you can see the comparison of methane gas emission under direct seeded rice and transplanted rice. So you can see in direct seeded rice, the methane emission is less, and in transplanted rice, it is more. So for the time being, you can remember that in transplanted rice, methane emission is 1.5 to 2 times more than the direct seeded rice. It is also there in direct seeded rice. You can't say that direct seeded rice is free from methane emission. It can happen in that rice also, because certain phases of and certain time will come where that rice will also be anaerobic. Suppose there is rainfall, suddenly there is rainfall, then water can stay in that field for 2-3 days. So you can get some methane emission. So methane emission is there in both cases, whether you have DSR or transplanted, but in DSR, it is much less than the transplanted rice. Now, methane emission is influenced by different rice establishment methods. So you can see how much methane is removed by different methods. So you can see transplanting 24.57 milligram per plant per day. This is the release of emission of methane. System of rice intensification, it is less than the transplanted method. And third one is aerobic rice, which is direct seeded. So it is roughly half of the transplanted method. So overall, from this slide, you can say that aerobic rice or direct seeded rice, you will have less methane emission compared to transplanted rice. Water productivity is also high in DSR. So you can see this data from Gill and co-workers 2007. In DSR, you can see the last column. In DSR, direct seeded rice, the water productivity, kg grain per cubic meter water, is more than the transplanted rice. So per kg grain means you consume less water and give more rice in DSR. Now you can see crop yields of the succeeding crop. So see the first case, DSR. You have taken rice, yield was almost, or rather more. In DSR, the yield was more. In TPR, the yield was less. However, the differences were non-significant. And you can see in transplanted puddle, yield was same in DSR as well as in TPR. But you see the yield of the succeeding crop. When you had DSR, the yield of wheat was 5.71. And when you had TPR puddle, yield of wheat was less, 4.86. So here the message is that for the succeeding crop, you get better yield after DSR compared to the transplanted rice. Same.
Sir, what is CD?
What is?
CD. And if P equals 0.05, what is CD?
CD is critical difference. It is critical difference.
Okay, sir.
It is
Is
the
there any formula, sir?
you will get, you are in MSc, I think. So you will get
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
one course of design of experiments and statistics. So there somebody will teach you CD. It is critical
Okay, sir.
difference. It is critical difference. The meaning is that if you conduct the CD critical difference here is seen at probability 0.05. 0.05 means 5%. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
The level of significance is 5%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that means if you repeat this experiment 100 times, then 95 times you will get the same result. That is the meaning of the workable meaning of this CD here, critical difference. Otherwise, this comes in the subject of statistics. You will study it in detail. Okay. So we continue.
Okay, sir.
No problem. You can ask anything. Or otherwise, you can talk to me through email. I will try to explain you the CD meaning in detail. So now you see the main thing. This is a factual figure. It is unbiased. It is very rational figure. You can trust upon this. You can rely upon this. On x-axis, you have water availability. And in this case, this data is from International Rice Research Institute. And you can see the productivity. See the colors, different color, the square or rectangles. First rectangle is green color. So this is traditional upland system where you go for direct seeding and there is no standing water. So here you get yields, low yields, maybe 2.5 to 3 tons per hectare. Then comes your aerobic rice system. Aerobic rice system is your, what I was talking about, direct seeded rice where under irrigated condition, high yielding variety. So here you can get yields of 5.5 tons, about 5.5 tons. Next best is alternate wetting and drying system under transplanting, the yellow color. And then slightly above this is SRI, system of rice intensification, giving you around 8 tons. And then comes the traditional lowland system, the transplanted rice. So from this figure, you can say traditional lowland. You can switch off your mic. So you can see traditional lowland system give you highest yield. So this is a fact. This is a matter of fact. The traditional upland system will give you high yield. And I have reviewed some papers, and you can say with surety that aerobic, direct seeded aerobic rice under irrigated condition will give you 1 ton per hectare less yield than the traditional lowland system. This is the statement that under aerobic rice system, you will get 1 ton less yield than the traditional lowland system or than the conventional rice culture. Now you can see these yield differences in transplanted rice and direct seeded rice. Many people say that you get equal yield. Many people say you get more yield. But overall, the matter of fact is that you get 1 ton more yield in transplanted rice than in direct seeded rice. I can defend it. So you can also say this statement. Now, suppose you are going for direct seeded aerobic rice under irrigated conditions. What should be the package of practices? If you are going for aerobic rice, high yielding variety, more nutrient application, more water, and so on, use of herbicide, etc., in direct seeded rice, which is your aerobic rice. So, what are the practices? So, in our department and in many other departments in India, the research has been done on aerobic rice, and many theses have been done by MSc and PhD students on aerobic rice. Particularly these students who are coming in MSc in our division, and they are doing MSc in Jharkhand and Assam. Most of them, or rather 95% students are doing their research in rice. So that way, this crop is important for you all, because you will, I am certain that most of you will get, those who are outside IRA, they will certainly get rice crop. You will do your research on rice crop. And in rice, most of you will work on aerobic rice or direct seeded rice. So you can remember this point in your mind. So suppose you are growing aerobic rice, then what are the practices? Number one is you grow it like wheat crop. So you prepare the field, and then seeding depth, sowing time, and soil moisture. What should be the depth of seeding? Should be 3 to 4 centimeter. And the best time of sowing in North India is 1 to 15 June. Whenever you have right time of sowing of nursery. So at the time of nursery sowing, if you are going for aerobic rice, that is the best time for direct seeding. And must be done at soil moisture content sufficient for proper germination. There should be good moisture in the soil. So better to go for pre-sowing irrigation if rainfall is not there. And then precision land leveling is compulsory. Cultivar choices, you need to select the high yielding varieties, but emphasis should be given on short duration varieties. Fertilizer use, this is the recommendation for aerobic rice: 150 kg nitrogen, 60 kg phosphorus, and 40 kg K2O. However, this recommendation should come on the basis of soil test, but this is a general recommendation. Weed management, you can use the necessary herbicides, and you will get one lecture I will arrange from Dr. T.K. Das on weed management in rice. So he will teach you how best you can manage the weeds in transplanted rice as well as in direct seeded rice or aerobic rice. So number of herbicides are available for rice. So there are certain benefits of aerobic rice, like water saving, use of family labor for weed control. So water saving is number one, because in this during vegetative growth phase, you apply just limited irrigation to make it to field capacity, and then you stop it. So frequency of irrigation is more, but depth of irrigation each time is less. So reduction in cost of cultivation on account of transplanting. There is no transplanting here. Returns are sustainable, saves farmers time, removes puddling. So you can go through all these advantages, but major advantage lies in water saving as well as in reduction in methane emission, and there is no drudgery for transplanting. So these are some advantages, but it has got certain constraints also. Improper crop stand. Crop stand is an issue in the beginning. If sufficient moisture is not there, crop emergence will be a problem. If seed is put deep, then germination will be affected. And then lack of suitable varieties for DSR. We really do not have varieties suitable for DSR. People or scientists are still developing varieties. And weed infestation is severe. So you need to use herbicides. And if unleveled fields are there, then you cannot go for aerobic rice. Your first priority is to get your fields leveled, because irrigation, if you apply, your fields are not leveled, then more water can be applied to one part of the field and other part of the field will remain dry. So that way there will not be good distribution of water unless your fields are leveled. So leveling of the field is very, very important. And uncertain irrigation water before onset of plant. So there may be some constraints here and there. In direct seeded rice, you can go through these constraints, but many of you might be knowing the value of the leveling of the land. In aerobic rice or any kind of farming, now farmers understand the value of land leveling, and it is now very common. Many farmers in intensive agriculture areas where number of crops are more, in those cases, now farmers have adopted this laser guided land leveling. So it has some advantages. This laser land leveling is a strategy to save water in rice. I discussed you some strategies. I discussed SRI, I discussed aerobic rice. Now I am discussing laser land leveling. So it can also be told as a water saving technology in rice production. So you can know more about laser land leveling, and it saves your water and increases the yield. and energy saving is there. So overall, considering the shortage of the water, there is definitely need to raise the water productivity. Water is very, very scarce. Land leveling and efficient crop management practices and irrigation method need to be followed to save water. SRE aerobic rice could help in saving water under a specific situation. These methods also lower the greenhouse gas emissions. Means you can use these techniques, particularly when you assume that there will not be regular rainfall. If in advance, if weatherman, if our meteorology department is able to predict that this year you will get bad monsoon, you will get less rainfall, if they say with certainty, then farmers can choose SRI or aerobic method to grow rice, because these methods can give you satisfactory yield when water deficit is there. And if water deficit is there, you go for transplanting, you will not get good yield. I told you some case of some genotypes. A genotype which was meant for transplanting condition will give better yield only under that condition. If that genotype is facing dry conditions, low